Hello, welcome to Family Therapy Podcast. My name is George Chacha. This episode is entitled Men Only. Men Only. The episode explores the reason why the engine of the man will not fire in the matrimonial bed, yet seems to fire outside the matrimonial bed. We will be exploring various theories surrounding this concept or this aspect, where men have found themselves incapable of fulfilling their obligations in their marriage, where men have found themselves with an engine that seems to be so rebellious such that it only seems to fire outside the matrimonial bed, or if at all it fires. It has emerged from many couples. And in this case, of course, again, I have had the opportunity of interacting with many couples, both males and females, in regard to this concept of the engine refusing to fire in the matrimonial bed. And I will be speaking from the perspective of the man, because again, it borders on a wide range of things that either any ordinary man might have experienced them or might have heard them, or both. And therefore, welcome to the Men's Only episode, an episode on the engine why it doesn't fire. My name is George Chacha, a Rotary Peace Fellow with a Professional Development Certificate in Peace Building and Conflict Mitigation from Chulalongkorn University in Bangkok, Thailand. I stand out as a counselor without borders on marriage, children upbringing, mental health, and inter-community conflict. If this is your first time to join Family Therapy Podcast, I request you to click the like button, subscribe, click the bell so that you may always get notification of any new presentation that comes about. The forum seeks to rejuvenate, rekindle, and strengthen families by providing amicable ways of resolving marital conflicts and even resolving the conflicts in the children. In this episode, as we explore the reasons why the man's engine or the husband's engine seems to be only firing outside, if it fires at all, we'll be exploring what are the causes. In the past episode, in one of the past episodes, I talked about kind of rekindling or building family or building the relationships. And one of the aspects was the aspect of intimacy. It is evident and almost common knowledge that the graph of intimacy seems to rise up to a certain point, and when it reaches the peak, the graph can either straighten up along the axis line, or even, in a very unfortunate cases, the graph seems to have a downward trend. With this kind of a graph, we expect many negative things, because when the graph is on the downward trend, it means there is something or there are things that are just not going right. Men seem to be in love at the first sight. Men seem to be hooked to the woman of their choice. Men will be madly in love And the first month, the first year, maybe the first 5 years, the man is deep inside in love. The man seems to be swimming, to be wallowing, to be existing inside the love. But as time goes by, we have phases of life, and as phases change, either due to transfer or maybe due to occupational challenges, of course, then changes started happening. Changes, and in this case sometimes, and unfortunately very negative changes, start coming into play. In the process, the gap between the two spouses seems to be growing bigger and bigger. If unchecked, the gap becomes so big that the magnetic force from either the man or the wife cannot detect the metallic chips, to the extent that the chips remain there and the magnetic field is almost non-existent or too weak to stand the test of time. It is unfortunate, and in this case, to those professionals who have to find themselves working far apart. But again, it's not just the occupational challenges that contribute to the connection between the husband and the wife falling. This magnetic field between the husband and the wife can weaken as a result of the people that the partners or the parties interact with. A man, for instance, who has to spend out there the entire evening with friends, drinking or maybe watching football or maybe just in social place, is at risk of weakening the marital magnetic field. Because where your heart is, there lies your soul. Where your mind is, there lies your soul. In the process, you're most likely to get diversionary lanes. You're most likely to get hijacked one way or the other, to the extent that you realize you can have a substitute for your partner so easily, so comfortably, with all the fulfillments, or with you being able to get all your needs or requirements without necessarily going to your original partner. The magnetic field in marriages also seems to weaken as a result of family pressure. It could be from relatives, from the extended family, from maybe even the wife being too busy with the children, being too busy with other issues, to the extent that it becomes normal to go without intimacy for 2 days, it becomes normal even to go without intimacy for 1 week, for 1 month, for 3 months, and even for 1 year. And gradually we end up becoming neighbors in the same house. We are living in a house where we are not at war with each other. We are not in conflict in any way whatsoever. We are just friends. We are neighbors. We kind of share a kitchen, we share a living room, and we share a bedroom. But beyond that, the excitement is gone, to the extent that the man starts fantasizing with another partner out there. Either it could be a colleague at work, it could be maybe that lady who is a steward somewhere, or maybe in that joint place where the man frequents, and without knowing it, we end up getting sucked in, and by the time we realize, we are inside the whale, inside the stomach of the whale. It is a complicated issue where we drift into the ocean unaware. We lose and we disconnect. We lose the connection with the people we are supposed to connect, totally unaware of this. And we only come to be aware of it when it is too late. And unfortunately, in many instances, it reaches a point where this marriage becomes irredeemable. In regard to this aspect of the engine not running, it is quite strange. I have heard from a number of men where their engine, this one I'm speaking now from the perspective of a man, where the engine has totally refused to run on the matrimonial bed, and interestingly, on going out there, the engine has functioned. I say this with a lot of sensitiveness to religion, and I have got very special respect for religion, but again, I'm speaking of reality. I'm speaking of facts that we cannot push under the carpet and assume that they are not working. Many marriages that are on the verge of collapse as a result of the husband not being able to offer the sacrament of marriage is due to the fact that the engine of the man has refused or has kind of discriminated the bed upon which it must be run. So how do we handle this, we as men? For once, depending on how this came about, we might be called upon to re-examine ourselves and possibly sit down with our partner and explain the challenge to our partner, and even kind of suggest this. You see, in a man's life, there are many switches. We have got 5 amp switches, 15 amp switches, 20 amp switches, even up to 50 amp switches. And it's all a matter of the husband identifying the right switch that the wife should touch, the right chord that the wife should play for this aspect, or for this connection, for this electric current to flow, to be restored again. And therefore, it is very important for the man to approach the wife very respectfully, recognizing that the wife is equally at pain. The wife has possibly detected that the man has a relationship out there. And like I've always said, we can lie to our partner maybe for 1 week. We can lie maybe for 1 month. We can lie maybe for 1.5 months, but not more than 2 months. And therefore, chances of our partner or our wives knowing that we have a spare garage out there from where we go for servicing are very high. And in the event that this is the scenario, that the woman of our life has discovered that we are actually having another partner out there, don't deny it. Humble yourself before your woman. Apologize. Repent. And promise to change. Trusting that your wife will be reasonable enough, will be humble enough, will be forgiving, because like I once talked about forgiveness, this is the only thing that is remaining to hold you together. Forgiveness. And therefore the wife will be called upon to forgive, accommodate, not that she agrees, but for the bigger picture. And in this scenario of the man humbling himself before the wife, explain the challenges. Ask her what she thinks she can do. Give her your perspective, your contribution. What do you want her to do? How do you want her to handle and treat this incident? And together, the two of you exercise the act of communication, the act of dialogue. Because in the midst of all this, you are not alone. You are not isolated. And I'm speaking to you as someone who has spoken or talked to numerous or a big number of couples. I have talked to many people both within Kenya and outside Kenya, and therefore I know what I'm talking about, since it cuts across. This is a cross-cutting issue. Weakening in intimacy. Let us help each other in marriage, that without necessarily causing a sin, without necessarily causing a stigma in one, let us acknowledge the problem and then handle it passionately, reasonably, and with a lot of love and understanding. And to the woman, let her also realize that the act of serving the sacrament is only possible when the engine is hot enough and can run. And therefore she has an obligation to help the engine to the level it's supposed to be, rather than reprimand, castigate, thunder, or even bark at the husband who absolutely has no power over the prevailing situation. Many couples may opt to use sex enhancement pills. The man might opt to gulp so many kind of special drinks to enhance the sexual urge. May kind of even go for certain pills and the Viagra and all those kind of things. And even some men resort to watching pornography and watching many kind of illicit publications, material, to kind of revive the memory, the psychology, and the body chemistry. These are temporal. They are short-lived, and their effectiveness is only for a short time. And after that, the disaster is even bigger. We all know of very big people who I will not mention names. For instance, a very big person in West Africa who died of sex enhancement pills, only to later be learned that he actually had 2 women in bed. And this kind of things replay. I mean, they replay in everyday life, where people don't want to feel like they're let down. And therefore, it is important for the wife to be accommodating. It may fail today, but certainly tomorrow it will be different. The best way to uplift your man is not to command, or is not to condemn him, is not to point out and being angry at that act of failure, but to encourage him, looking at him with love and compassion, and tell him, my love, it is well. It is traumatizing to both partners, yet when the engine is not running, it can be most challenging to the man. It has also emerged that black magic is at play. I know this could be a very, very contentious and highly debatable point of situation whereby a man has been bound by another woman, okay, so to say. Again, remember, I'm sharing with you issues and discussions that I have picked from a wide range of people and from a very, very expansive society, where a man goes out with another sex partner and ends up being hooked such that the engine cannot function when he comes back to the house. Fiction? Maybe. Have I ever experienced it? Well, that is story for another day. But the fact remains that many people in the African setup have come not just to a kind of superstitious notion, but they have come to the realization that black magic, what we call here in Kenya kamote, actually works to that effect, where a man who has gone outside his marital bed, has gone to the extent of having an affair with another woman who could possibly maybe be a commercial sex worker or a single woman who is determined to hook another man, and goes as far as getting or doing something totally exceptional, such that the man will never function when he goes back to his wife. It is a frustrating experience when we come to realize that this kind of things have worked. Yet, as a believer, and say this again with a lot of respect and faith in the living word, namely the Bible, which I subscribe to, that witchcraft is real. I mean, it is talked about in the Bible. Saul had to go to a witch doctor for him to have Samuel called back from the dead, and it worked. And having come from a society or a community of the Bakuria people, where witchcraft has been part of the tradition of the Bakuria people for ages, and I have seen the ripples that this kind of effect has had. Whether it's real or it's psychological, again, this is subject to one's understanding. But the key factor here is for the two partners to sit together, acknowledge the problem, face the problem head on, not fight with each other, fight against the problem. If it will need to go before the holy altars and offer sacrifice and seek even divine intervention, so be it. But the best help is when the two of you acknowledge the problem, evaluate the problem, and seek how the two of you can resolve it. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Once again, I remind you, if this is your first time or if you have not subscribed to this channel, please click the like button, click the subscribe button, click the bell so that you get periodic notification of this channel, and let's keep this dialogue moving. I get very encouraged to read comments from you, those who send me messages of thank you, messages of congratulations. I say thank you. Otherwise, I look forward to maybe having another in-depth episode, and in the next episode, I will be talking about mental health. I will be talking about mental health stroke suicidal tendency. Again, remember, I lost my own son through suicide. I lost my own in a very, very tragic way. It's not an easy thing when you wake up one night, or rather you get out one evening only to find your son dangling from a rope. So I will be talking about mental health in children, that unbecoming behavior, that negative traits that our children, the young people, exhibit. And I will be sharing and showing you how we, the parents, contribute to the mental health, even to the extent of hastening our children to their own grave. So don't miss that episode. It will be powerful. It will be very powerful. Others, thank you, and meet you in the next episode.